All right. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome back to Youth Champions. It's good to have you here. As you all jump in, I want you all to take stock of the poll and the quiz. As you get started today, as I mentioned, we're going to start talking about mindset. It's an exciting topic that is the key to your success in general. And so in the past couple of weeks, we've talked about finance, we've talked about decision making, and now we're going to come back to mindset because generally speaking, you know, you are in your way of your success. And the better mindset that we can have, the greater success that you can have as well. And so I'm just curious to get a pulse check from you all. I want you all to one, answer the poll. And if you're done answering the poll, I want you all to express yourself in emojis. Like, what emoji are you feeling right now? Go through the emojis, see what emojis exist. I'm curious to see what emoji represents you best today. I want to see you react on the Zooms. So if you're feeling happy, like a smiley face. If you're feeling tired, like that emoji, that's kind of like a Z. Thank you,
Hindi ka
Emily.
maglata kay
All
kanang
right.
itong positive
Now
ito,
see a lot of you are
punishing this
feeling
one.
tired. Brenda, what does that face mean?
Um, Hungry.
Oh, you're hungry. Yeah, it's like 5 p.m. where you all are at. I'm like in Atlanta right now, so that's like 3 hours ahead of y'all. So I just came back from dinner. Um, Thanks for being here, even though you're hungry. I appreciate it. But yeah, y'all. Thanks for sharing your emojis. Some of you are tired, some of you are hungry, some of you are happy to be here. Wherever, whatever you're feeling, I'm just grateful that y'all are here. Thanks for being here. And you all are the best part of you champions. And so let's dive in with some announcements. Chris, do you want to share some words?
Thank you, Joseph. Hi everyone. Welcome to our class today. I just wanted to remind you to please turn on your cameras and display your complete name because that's how we accurately track your attendance for today's session. And if you are an alumni or student leader, kindly put alumni and SL before your name because we'll be doing breakout rooms. And if you're having technical issues with your audio or with your camera, or even if you're an important event, please message YC staff Will so she can take note of that for your attendance. And I'm going to give the floor back to Joseph.
All right. Uh, Thanks, Chris. One more announcement from my end is that I'm going to give you all time to answer your workbooks during this class because I want you all to be able to submit them on time and get the most points that you can to get the money at the end of the year. Last week, I noticed that not everybody submitted your workbooks, and I just want to make sure that I'm giving enough time to do that. My goal is to have every single one of you submit this because I want you all to get the most out of you champions, not only from a financial perspective, but also just for yourselves. And the best way that you can do that is to engage with the workbooks, take advantage of the minute and 90 seconds at the end to be able to really, submit your workbooks. And together we can be champions as well. So let's dive into today's topic, which is all about mindset. So if you haven't taken the poll already, take a minute to answer the questions. There are 16 responses, but over 20 of you in this room. So I know some of you didn't submit an answer, but take the poll if you haven't. Today's conversation is going to be about hope, optimism, and gratitude. These are key aspects of mindset that are critical parts of your success. And so, in that, pay attention to what these are. Some of you might know these words already. And I'm going to ask you what these words mean to you. But it's all about the mindset of having hope, optimism, and gratitude for your greatest success in the future. So, let's go to the next slide. So, last week we talked about indecision. And so much of life is making good decisions And sometimes, making a good decision is really tough. We talked about how things like overload, mental fatigue, and perfectionism prevent us from making a decision or taking action. We learned about how limiting options and setting helpful defaults are really helpful tools in order to really get to a decision faster. And we also talked about how adding structure, becoming aware, and aligning your choices with your values helps you make better decisions that support progress towards your goal instead of paralysis. And so making good decisions are going to be such a critical part for the rest of your life. Your life is paved based on the decisions that you make, and your success is paved and decided based on the decisions that you make. So it's super critical to be able to do that and battle indecision, because no decision is typically worse than making a decision that gets you more information about what it would have been like to be able to do that thing and see what it's like. But let's talk about this week. All right. So I would love to get some help from y'all to go over what we're going to talk about this week. So Jennifer Gomez, if you might be so willing, could you read the 3 bullet points for us today?
Understand how hope, optimism, and gratitude strengthen emotional resilience by shaping how students interpret challenges, stay motivated during difficulties, and maintain a positive future-focused mindset. Learn how these 3 mindsets fuel grit, helping students stay committed to long-term goals, recover after setbacks, and view obstacles as temporary and manageable. Apply practical strategies such as setting meaningful goals, practicing daily gratitude, using balanced optimism, and focusing on controllable actions to build consistent habits that support perseverance, confidence, and long-term growth.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm going to share the poll results right now to give you a sense on where all your fellow champions are at. Like when for the first question, which mindset helps you push through difficult moments the most? Most of you said hope that things can improve, and I think that's great. Some of you said optimism, and some of you said determination to reach your goals, which are, awesome to see that you believe that challenges are temporary and you have determination to reach your goals. We're going to talk a little bit about gratitude, as a way to fuel, how you can push through difficult moments afterwards. And I'd be curious to see, how many of you would have picked that after a conversation. To the second question, when you face a challenge, what do you naturally focus on first? An overwhelming majority of you said that what's going wrong, which is a natural thing to experience. And I'm like glad to see that some of you said that, what might go right and what I can control, and so these are also great things to reach for. But life is filled with challenges, and we're going to see how hope, optimism, and gratitude can help you focus on the right things to make the best choice next. And for the third question, when progress feels slow, what usually keeps you from moving? Or what usually keeps you moving? Most of you said encouragement from others, which is great to hear. Like I also respond really well to encouragement. If I feel like no one has my back or no one thinks that I can do it, it sort of makes me feel like I may not be able to. And so sometimes my long-term goal keeps me on like the right path, but I love encouragement from others, and I'm glad that a lot of you like feel similarly to me. But it's also good to be able to track small wins, have great personal discipline, and of course, like keeping committed to your goal is also really awesome to be able to know why you're doing the things that you do. So for me, like I love hope, optimism, and gratitude. These are things that I use on a daily basis. For me, like I remember when I was your age, I wasn't sure, how hope, optimism, gratitude played into things. My mindset probably wasn't the best. And I probably could have done a lot more if I knew that, things were going to be okay in the end. I remember when I was a freshman in college, I had a friend that kept on telling me when I would fail a midterm, do bad on a problem set, like it's all going to be okay in the end. And I was like, you're crazy. Like I'm dying right now. Like this is definitely not going to be okay for me. And that was my mindset. But she was right. she was absolutely right that things are going to be okay in the end if you have the right mindset. And that's something that I keep with me as well now. And I want to be able to inspire that and instill that within you too with this particular lesson. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay, what are hope, optimism, and gratitude? Um, how many of you have never heard any of these words? How many of you don't know what hope means or don't understand what optimism might be or are confused with gratitude and what that is? Or maybe how many of you know what it is, rather? Like, if you know what hope or optimism and gratitude are, I want to see your some sort of emoji. Thumbs up. All right, most of you have a sense of what it is. Omar, what is hope to you?
Hope to me, in my definition, is like believing something might go right.
All right, believing something that might go right. I love that. Thanks for sharing. I think that's definitely an aspect of hope for sure. Arlene, between optimism and gratitude, which one are you most familiar with?
I'm more familiar like with gratitude, like just being thankful and like about everything.
Yeah, being thankful, for what you got. I think that's definitely a key attribute of gratitude. Thanks for sharing. Nelsie, what is optimism to you?
Um, I think that optimism is like where you have more positive thoughts, like based on like any situation, like you are more motivated to be more positive than negative.
Yeah, I love that. Like for any situation, you could see, that things can go well. And I think that's definitely an attribute of optimism as well. So I'm glad that some of you or most of you have an understanding of what hope, optimism, and gratitude are. But I'm going to go through that, just briefly for those who may not be as familiar with it for the class. So let's talk about hope really quick. Hope is believing that your future can be better and that you have the ability to influence it. It involves setting meaningful goals and working towards them, even in difficulty, knowing that there is hope, that you're able to achieve them, and things are going to go well if you do achieve them. Optimism. Optimism is an aspect of seeing challenges as temporary, specific, and manageable, but also focusing on positive aspects and believing good outcomes are possible. And so this is really important because if you focus on the negative aspects and you didn't believe that a good outcome was possible, chances are you wouldn't even start or you wouldn't even try to work through a particular challenge. And so optimism is a really key mindset to be able to really focus on the things that could go well and really believe and have hope that good outcomes are possible. Let's talk about gratitude real quick. Gratitude is recognizing and appreciating the good things in your life, even through tough times. Like it's being thankful for sure, but it's also recognizing that good things are in your life, even when things are not going the best to what you want. It is it helps shift focus from what's lacking to what's valuable or what is already there. And so for me, like gratitude is like an important lens for me to look at because my job is solving problems. Like people throw problems on me like literally every minute of my day. And like, Joseph, what are we gonna do about X, Y, and Z? And for me, it's like, gosh, there's so many things we don't have. But the fact that even in asking even having this problem, for example, my company wants to make $50 million in this next year. To be able to even ask that of me, which is like a really hard thing to solve, we have had to make $1 million. And the fact that we made $1 million is better than making no money. And so in that, I've shifted my perspective from like, gosh, this problem is so hard to like, you know what? We've done a lot already and we could probably do more. And I'm thankful for the things that we have done. And so it shifts focus from what's lacking to what's actually valuable and already there. And so why this matters is that, hope, optimism fuel your motivation. While gratitude helps you maintain a perspective and positivity together, they build a mindset that supports resilience, grit, and well-being. And we've talked about resilience, grit, and well-being in the past, where like grit is like very critical in order to, really work through hard things. And resilience is the ability to like come back together. If you've been with me in the past or you've taken other courses or have been part of other facilitators, you might have heard these things already, but it's so critical to like remember how your mindset needs to be calibrated and how hope, optimism, and gratitude can continue to really help you build that mindset. And so I hope that every single one of you have had some aspect of hope, optimism, and gratitude in your life. And you've experienced that as well. And so I want to turn to a workbook question on the next slide that helps you dwell on this a little bit more, where it asks, like, how do hope, optimism, and gratitude help you face challenges? Consider a specific example where you use a combination of these things, one of these things, to help you through a challenge. And I want you to think about that, write it down in your workbook. I'm going to give you a minute to do that. And then we're going to break into breakout rooms where we're going to share how you have used these tools and these mindset changes to really help you work through or face a challenge that was hard for you. So take a minute to think about it, write it down, and then we'll go into breakout rooms afterwards. All right, y'all. I hope that that was enough time to at least think about a situation where you applied one of these mindsets to a challenge. And I would love for you to go into breakout rooms and share it with one another so y'all can see how you have used these things and maybe inspire others to be able to use it. Some of you used hope, some of you used optimism, some of you used gratitude, some of you used a combination of them. And I think your experiences could be super valuable for your other champions to hear as well. So take 4 minutes to share within your groups. Enjoy your breakout rooms. All right, everyone, welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed your conversations with people in your breakout room and you heard how other people are using hope, optimism, and gratitude in their lives and such. I'm curious to hear from the alumni and student leaders who led the groups, some patterns or some things they noticed, any takeaways and such. Kayla, did you lead a room and would you be willing to share?
Yes, I did lead a room. Well,
Thanks.
I think it was funny because we all pretty much had the exact same answer. We all talked about experiences in school specifically because, academic stress is very difficult. We basically just talked about, two of us talked about an experience kind of where like we did really bad on the test. That was like very important. And hope and optimism kind of gave us that like reassurance and moment of ease to basically kind of help us realize that it wasn't the end of the world, even though it felt like it was, kind of like you were sharing earlier. So that just, yeah, I think hope and optimism just kind of helps us find a way to like de-stress from the situation because obviously at first your initial reaction is panic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really good to be able to like ground yourself in what's true, which is like there are things to be grateful for, and the fact that you probably all have worked through some difficulties in the past, and you can have hope that you live through that, and you can probably live through more, which was great to hear. That I relate with a lot of the challenges through academic stress. Like it was super stressful, and I don't envy the stress that y'all are feeling around it right now. Thanks for sharing, Kayla and team. Uh, Carissa Lynn, how was your room?
Yeah, one of the common answers was like academic stress and using optimism to move on forward or just like hope for, I guess, for like, I don't know, better things. But I think also a key takeaway was someone had mentioned using these things not only for like current challenges, but also future challenges.
Oh, like say more about like using it for future challenges.
Hmm oh,
Yeah, like what does that mean? Like to use it for future challenges?
well, I didn't say it, but I saw it as like when you live and you learn. So, how do I don't really know how to explain.
Yeah, and that's okay. I think like hope, optimism, and gratitude, it's supposed to help you leverage what your experiences in the past, which is like you can have hope because you've worked through challenging things, and you're here still. And optimism is that like a perspective where, I have worked through hard things before and like they were hard and I wasn't sure if they were going to go well, but I'm going to be optimistic that they're going to go well. And gratitude is similar, where it's like there are things that have happened to me that I'm grateful for. And I continue to look at that as the things that I do have versus the things that I don't have. And so I think in that, so much of the future and what you look forward to is based on the fact that y'all have done hard things in the past. You have gone through hard stuff and you've all emerged from it successful in your own ways. And so I think for all of us, like hope, optimism, and gratitude applies so much to every single one of our futures. And so I'm glad that whoever in your class said that they're going to use it for the future stuff. That's great because I think every single one of you should be using this for the future stuff as well too. So thanks for sharing that with us, Chrysalin, and your room. Really appreciate your thoughts, and I think we can move forward from here. Um, so we're going to talk about the connection to grit and resilience. And so we might have talked about this in weeks past or in classes past. It's something that I think about a ton because, life, as I mentioned, doesn't go to plan. Life, as you probably have experienced in your academic stress, is not easy. And so, in that, when life is hard and when things are challenging, hope, optimism, and gratitude can really fuel grit and resilience in a very unique way where, you know, let's talk about what grit is first. Grit is perseverance and passion for long term goals, even when progress is slow. And so, how many of you know what the word perseverance means? I want to see a show of emojis. Like, I'm curious, like, who knows what perseverance is? All right, Mario and Omar know what perseverance is. Arlene, all right. All right. I see a couple more of you, Emily. Okay, so y'all are familiar with the word. Um, I'm curious, Gianna, how would you define perseverance?
I would define it as like something that keeps you going no matter like how challenging or how rough things are. Like you always push through and you always go and reach for the challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Perseverance is being able to pick yourself up and keep on going, even if the challenge is difficult. You get back up and push for the future, for your long-term goals, even when progress is slow. And so grittiness is like this idea of like, gosh, I have this big goal that I want to achieve, but like, gosh, just working to it. It's not just a goal that I can achieve in a day. It's a goal that I'm going to achieve in 4, 10 years, for example. And so perseverance and passion for long-term goals is like grit, you know. The second word that I want to talk about is resilience. Resilience is very similar to perseverance. Um, and resilience is the ability to bounce back and adapt after setbacks. And so, what I like to think about resilience is like a rubber band, where like you stretch a rubber band and then you let go and it goes back to its original shape, you know, and its original size. And it's the ability to bounce back and adapt after setbacks. And so, you are going to face challenges in life. I don't know what challenges you're going to face. I don't know how hard they're going to be, how easy they're going to be. I just know life is challenging, and every single one of you are going to experience challenge for the rest of your life. And resilience is the ability to bounce back from a challenge and you say, you know what, you know, that was tough, but I'm going to come back together and then move forward in a different way because I know that I've learned something from my previous challenge and like mistake or whatever it might be, and I know a different approach to take, and that is resilience. And so, how hope, optimism, and gratitude feel these things is that hope provides the belief and motivation to keep working towards a goal. Optimism reinforces the idea that challenges are temporary and efforts will pay off. And gratitude builds emotional strength by focusing on what's good and supportive. And so, for example, like let's say that you are an athlete. You know, I had just finished watching the Olympics. Incredible to see some of the things that people achieved on ice, on snow. It is crazy. Some of the stories that I've heard of the recoveries that people had needed to make in order to get to the Olympics and how they overcame. And so, an example is that an optimistic athlete recovering from an injury either gratitude for their supportive teammates and hope for recovery to stay motivated during the rehab. And so, if you're an athlete and you've been injured, you probably know this too. The road to recovery is super painful, super hard. Like for me, like I had a sprained ankle when I was trying to play badminton in high school, and just having my fellow teammates encourage me was so helpful for me to like really stay motivated and to push forward. And like their encouragement, as so many of you said, as like the thing that really helps you during the setback, really gave me hope, you know, really kept me in the right mindset to be optimistic, and just have gratitude for the fact that I had people around me, you know, to really overcome. And whether or not it is about sports in your life or about school and the tests that you take, you know, there is an opportunity to use hope, optimism, and gratitude to have grit and resilience to push through to accomplish your academic goals, your life goals, your financial goals, whatever goals you may have. This is going to be a super critical thing in the future for you to use, and to have, as a way to look at life, to be able to help you work towards your hard goals that you have. And so I want to give you some time to think about this next question. It's so I want you all to go back to your workbooks and think about this question. In moments when you feel stuck, what role do hope or optimism actually play for you? How do they shape your next move, or do they shape your next move? Um, Take a minute to think about this, and I'm curious to hear what you all said about this when we come back. So take a minute to think about this question. All right. Um, I'm curious to hear from some of you on how you answered this workbook question. Um, does anybody want to like just volunteer, like how they answered this question?
I'll volunteer.
All right, go for it.
For me, um, for the role that optimism and hope has, I think it just gives you like I know how you mentioned like support from other people like helps someone move, but when you don't have none of that, and I guess if the thought of believing in yourself should be enough to even move to the next step, because I've noticed like a lot of people who are not determined or are always negative all the time. I guess they like that because they think negative, and positive people they stay positive because they try to be positive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that what you're noticing is that you have seen a pattern in folks. Like some negative people, they seem to be in a similar place where they're just stuck, and they can't really get out of being stuck. Whereas you've also noticed that people that can get unstuck, like they generally try to like have hope and like they have a mindset, you know. And I think that that's probably a pattern that you've noticed, and I'm glad that you try to like even without people like be hopeful as well. And I think in those moments like where you don't have anyone cheering you on, like I think you have your life experience to show that like the fact that you're here today, like means that you probably care about your life enough to show up, which means that there are other decisions you made before this that are challenging to get you to the spot too. And you can have hope that you'll probably make some better decisions in the future. And you are enough within yourself to like achieve what you want. And so I think like a team is grateful. It's great to have a team to support you, but you can also do a lot within your own self with the right mindset. So thank you for sharing, Omar. Um, does anybody else? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Omar. If you
Oh
wanted
no, I was
to.
gonna say you're welcome. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else answer this question in their own way? Nelsie, how did you answer this question?
So I kind of answered it like kind of in the same way, but not really. So I kind of focused more on hope, and I feel like it kind of plays more as a motivator for me because it's kind of like it helps me hope for like a brighter like situation than what it is. So like if you have a challenge, you mostly go to like you want to give up or it's like a negative thought. But I think hope plays a part that's like, okay, I hope that this can push me to become a better person or this gives me a better outcome in the future. So I think that that actually kind of makes me to want to keep trying and not give up like I usually would.
Yeah, I think hope is a great fuel to keep you trying, even when you might not have been. I think the hope to be able to achieve your goal after maybe a failure is like something that really can push you forward. And I think that any problem is solvable, given enough chances to try to solve them. And I think you can have hope that like in your failure or what you tried didn't work, like one way that it doesn't work for you to try the next thing that could work. And so thank you for sharing that. And I hope that, you know, next challenge, you'll like choose to be hopeful that you can figure out whatever you want to do. So thank you, Nelsie. Can I get like one last person to share, how they answered this question? One
Anyone?
more person. Anyone.
I can go.
Thank you, Micaiah.
Um, so sorry. So when I feel stuck, hope is like the voice in my head that like tells me that the moment like it's not permanent and it keeps me from giving up on myself. And optimism, it helps me believe that like even if I don't see the full, I guess, solution yet, like there's a way forward because of that. Like instead of shutting down, I'm more likely to like take a small step, like asking for help or like trying a different approach.
Yeah, I love that. I think that both of these things can really, fuel you to work through difficult things when you don't know what to do and there's a challenge in front of you. And so I'm glad that you use both of these things. I love that for you. And I hope that they continue to shape your next move. So thank you, Micaiah, for sharing. Let's talk about the next topic, which is around um, realistic hope, balance, optimism, and gratitude in action. And so we're going to talk about this because blind hope or blind optimism, isn't necessarily going to get you to the right places. And so we want to be realistic because life is real, reality is hard. So let's be a little realistic in applying these things. And so let's talk about realistic hope. And so realistic hope recognizes challenges and focuses on solutions. Like, for example, like this particular problem is hard, but if I keep on practicing, I'll improve. Like this could be like you're trying to practice for like a play that you're in, and your lines are like really hard, or like you're trying to play a sport and like you're just not doing like what you think you want, what you think you're able to do. It is like the ability to recognize that, yes, this is hard, but if I keep on working towards it, I will get it done. And that's realistic hope. And this is, contrasted with maybe, blind optimism and balanced optimism, where, blind optimism assures everything will work out without effort. Balanced optimism encourages action and preparation alongside positivity. And so, realistic hope is the idea that, like, okay, if I work towards something, I'll be able to get this done or figure it out. Balance optimism is very similar, where, you know, as long as you're working towards it and you're action oriented, as in like you're actually doing things to like work towards a problem, that positivity, can really help you go farther and have like breakthroughs. And so if you're just blindly optimistic that things are going to work out without anything changing, that is not a recipe for success. You really need to be able to put in the work in order to get a meaningful outcome. And so you might get lucky sometimes where like you didn't put in as much work and you got the thing that you wanted, but life, rarely ever like things rarely ever just fall into your lap. You have to work at them, you have to take action, and your actions are the things that, produces the outcomes that you need, that you want to see. So as long as you're moving forward and you're trying new things, that's where like realistic hope and balanced optimism can come through. If you're like working towards it, you can have realistic hope, that things are going to go your way eventually, and you can have balanced optimism to know that, as long as you prepare things and have a positive mentality about it, things will generally like work out in the end. Gratitude in challenges is the idea that even through tough times, gratitude can reframe the situation. For example, this project is overwhelming, but I'm grateful for my teammates that are willing to help. And so, in that, you don't have to always like you don't always have to, I guess, in tough times, you know, you don't always have to see the negative. You actually can see like where things have gone well, who you have around you, and focus on the things that you do have to really be able to use that in challenges as well too. And so looking at the things that you do have versus the things that you don't have, is gratitude and challenges. And so I want to go to the next workbook to give you a moment to think, you know, when you're facing something difficult, how do you usually acknowledge a challenge with believing improvement is possible? And so I want you to go to your workbooks and take a minute to answer this question as well too. All right. Uh, there are so many right answers to this question. Um, so I'll just share mine because I like this question a lot. So I'll go off first and just share that, like, the way that I acknowledge, this is a challenge while believing that improvement is possible is like by looking at my past, like performance. Like, I think being able to present in front of you used to be like super scary for me, where I used to like freeze up when I had to like give presentations and things like that. And the fact that I can give presentations and not be anxious about it is like showing me that improvement is possible. And so many of you have told me that I'm doing this thing really well through the surveys. I read your survey responses and I take y'all very seriously, which tells me that like if you're liking this particular class, it's because I have improved enough to be able to get like good marks. And so if you want something changed, I highly recommend that you finish your workbook, answer your survey, and things like that. But for me, like my past performance and my past history of showing that I have worked through difficult situations in the past shows me that like, I can get better at things too. So that's the way that I use it. I'm curious to hear from anyone else, like who has something to say here of like how they're doing in their own lives. Your life is different than my life, and so your answers might be a little different than mine. And so I'm curious if anyone wants to share how they answer this question for themselves.
Feel free to turn on your mics, everyone.
Yeah, we're trying something new. I want to see what thoughts y'all have. So, how did y'all answer this question?
Um, I could answer this one, Mister.
All right, Omar, go for it.
For me, honestly, even though there's a challenge, and sometimes I might not see it at the moment that I'm improving, but eventually, if I put in like enough effort and time in, I will see improvement regardless of the subject. And I feel like having a good teacher like can help you with the believing process, because the majority of the time when you learn something by yourself, you're not gonna see it right away. So I guess the consistency is difficult. But other than that, I feel like you should be fine and believe yourself.
Yeah, I think that I really like this what you said around consistency. That if you continue working towards something, you'll figure it out, no matter what the subject is. So thank you for sharing that with us, Omar. Um, Julian, I'm curious to hear from you. Like, how did you answer this question?
So what I do is first I try to understand what makes the situation difficult. And then at the same time, I try to remind myself that whatever the problem is, I could improve it with enough time and effort. So so what I do is I would try like different approaches or try to break it into smaller pieces so I can make progress.
Yeah, yeah, I think being able to like chunk down problems is super important. And so I think that's like one great strategy that you can use to be able to continue knowing. Like if the problem is like super difficult and you can't solve it in one thing, break it down into smaller problems. And the smaller things feel a lot more doable than something like super big. So thank you for sharing, uh, Julian. Um, cool. Uh, Melanie, how did you answer this question? Melanie?
For me, I just put that like basically it's like important to like have a positive mindset. So for me, I like would recognize the challenge and instead of like seeing it as a bad thing, I would see it as like a positive thing and something that like could teach me. And with
Yeah.
this, like every like for every challenge, I would like try to make things that will like help me like learn.
Yeah, I love the idea of reframing things where like even a problem is an opportunity to learn. And so in that, like as you reframe things, as you work towards them, as long as you're working towards it with the right mentality, like reframing every problem as an opportunity to learn, I think that's going to definitely make working through difficult things in the future. So thanks for sharing, Melanie. Let's move on to the next and our last topic for the night, which is like strategies to build hope, optimism, and gratitude. And so, like, let's talk about how to make this practical in your lives because it can be a little abstract. And so, first thing I want to give you as a strategy is focus on what you can control. Like, identify aspects of a challenge that you can influence. Like, for example, like you can't control your test date, but you can control how you can prepare. And so in that, like oftentimes you might get worried. Like so many of my colleagues get worried about things that they cannot control. And my job is to help them focus on the things they can do to work towards a problem. And so in that, like think about what you can control and like whatever is in your control, you can actually manage. And don't worry about the things that you can't, because you can't do anything about them. So focus your energy on the things that you can control. The next thing to offer is to practice gratitude. And so reflect daily on things that you're thankful for to build perspective. For example, like start each day by writing down 3 things that you're grateful for. So for me, like I actually start every single one of my days like writing like lists of the things I'm grateful for. And so like this is like my notebook. The blur thing like kind of like blurs it out. But like I literally like write 10 things every single day of like what I'm grateful for. Like, and I've been doing this for like a year and it's like changed my life. And so in that, like it's super helpful for me to now train my eye to look for things that I'm grateful for, to know that I am abundantly blessed with so many things, versus like always focus on the negative things or the things I don't have. So that's one tangible way that I do it that I think you can do it too. Start with one thing that you're grateful for every day. Goes a super long way. I promise you'll be a different person in like a month if you try 20 plus days of doing it. The next thing, reminds me of something that Julian said actually, which is set small and achievable goals, which is like break larger challenges into smaller, manageable steps to build confidence. And so, in that, if a big problem is like too big to deal with, and you can break it down into smaller things, like that is one way to achieve things more optimally. Part of my job too is to help people see how big problems can be actually reduced into small chunks of things. And so you can actually make a pretty decent living by doing that too. And if you practice this on yourself, you also go really far in the goals that you have to achieve as well. Um, my next tip for you is to surround yourself with positivity. Seek out friends, mentors, role models who encourage hope, optimism, and gratitude as well. Like your You Champion peers are great peers to be around as well too. Because we're all trying to be better at hope and optimism and gratitude. And so the more that you hear it, the more that you see it lived out in different ways, the more that's reflected in your life as well too. So put yourself around positive people and it really will help you also become more positive and optimistic and grateful. My last tip for you, and this is something that um, Melanie shared actually, was like learning from setbacks and viewing failures as opportunities to grow and adjust your approach. And so this is like a reframe of, you know, learning from your mistakes. Like problems don't look great when you're in the problem, but you can learn so much. You learn even more from making mistakes than actually being perfect. And so, in that, learn from your setbacks because they are oftentimes life's best teacher. So I want to give you a minute to go into your workbooks and I want you to practice one simple thing, like my favorite thing, which is to list, 3 things that you're grateful for. That can be big, they can be small. Like one thing that I'm grateful for right now is the fact that my internet works because I'm in the middle of Georgia and the internet doesn't work well out here. And like I'm grateful that this entire class has been internet free, or like dinner has been good. And so in that, like something simple like that, like you have water in your tap, not everyone has water in their tap. That's crazy, right? But like you can be grateful for that too. And so take a minute, Think about 3 things and write them down. All right, y'all. Um, I hope that every one of you wrote something that you're grateful for. 3 things. I'm not going to have you share them because we're kind of short on time. But let's talk about what we're going to talk about in the next class, which is this book called The Four Agreements. And so, effectively, it's a book that I don't know if you had a chance to be part of our summer book club, but this is like a book that we read a couple summers ago. But it basically helps you explore words and perceptions and see how they shape how you connect with others and yourself as well. We're going to talk about learning to speak with integrity builds trust and self respect, and how not taking things personally supports confidence and emotional balance. And by practicing these things, you'll develop healthier communication, stronger relationships, and greater resilience in the challenges that you have. And so, look forward to another conversation on mindset, but in a different way than how we normally just talk about it. So, one thing I do want to give you, like as I mentioned, I want you all to basically fill in your workbooks. And so, some of you have started your workbooks, some of you have not started on your workbooks. And so, if you haven't, start. If you're almost done, I want to give you the next 90 minutes to complete your workbooks as well too. So take 90 seconds and I'll see you after that. All right, y'all. I hope that was enough time to finish up your workbooks. Please do submit. I aim for 100% submissions, and I would love to get your feedback on how this class can be better as well too. I have a couple announcements before we go. The first one is our Ignite speaker series in a couple of weeks. The last day to RSVP is in 3 days, and we have 2 great speakers in the next Ignite series to share their wisdom with you in life. And so this is a great way to get points. It's also a great way to hear wisdom from leaders in our community as well. And so we'd love to have you there. We also have a field trip coming up on March 15th, which is a Sunday. The last date to RSVP for this is March 6th. It is a World Cup symposium where we will talk about how to bring together the world one of the world's greatest sporting events, the World Cup. That LA has the opportunity to host in this year. The last thing to announce is for 12th graders. There's a scholarship opportunity for you all to participate in. And so if you're a 12th grader, take advantage of this. There's a link in the chat, but the deadline is March 2nd. So this is a great way to get scholarships, and being part of Youth Champions is a great, heads up or a bonus thing on your application to put on. So that's it, y'all. I hope that y'all have a great, hopeful, optimistic, and grateful upcoming week. And I'll see you again real soon. As you leave, drop some emojis, and we'll see you all real soon. Have a great evening, everyone. Be well. Good night. Bye, everyone.